And this time it's the Baca family. The Baca family has suffered a terrible and tragic, horrific loss as their mother and grandmother, Amelia Baca, was also murdered by a Las Cruces police officer. In fact, let me be blunt. Amelia Baca was executed by the Las Cruces Police Department on April 16th of this year. This should never have happened. It didn't need to happen. The police were called to the residence of Mrs. Baca, who had dementia because she was in a crisis. The Las Cruces Police Department are supposed to protect and serve, to act as caretakers of their community. Instead of protecting and serving the community of Las Cruces, the police murdered Miss Baca. The police knew she had dementia before they arrived. Dispatch told them that she was a 75-year-old woman who had dementia. The police knew that Miss Baca was in crisis. The police were told by Miss Baca's family multiple times, that she was sick, and they begged that police officer not to shoot her. They said, please be careful with her. Instead of assessing the situation as they are supposedly trained and ordered to do, this police officer shot this 75-year-old grandma twice, execution style, within 38 seconds of arriving at the front door. Police officers are supposed to de-escalate situations, especially with individuals who are having mental health crisis. Instead of de-escalating Miss Baca, instead of de-escalating her, instead of bringing everything down a level, this officer immediately began yelling at the top of his lungs, using foul language, while pointing his firearm at point-blank range at her. This yelling was all done in English. Miss Baca is a Spanish speaker and does not understand English. So, we had no de-escalation. We had no calm voice when that officer arrived. We had the officer not waiting for other officers to arrive at the residence. We had no less lethal force used. We had absolutely no effort to protect and serve. What we had was just 2 rounds at point-blank range, inner chest, execution style. After this officer shot her, and perhaps this says a lot about the mentality of this particular police officer. After this officer shot Miss Baca, she laid on the ground, still alive. Rather than render aid to Miss Baca, the officer who just shot her ordered another officer to drag her out of her house like Miss Baca was a hunted animal they had just killed. The officer never made a single effort to help her. She laid there, dragged from her house, from her home. She laid there in a pool of her own blood and died. As a result of this senseless tragedy, the Baca family is respectfully demanding that the district attorney charge this officer with murder. We are respectfully demanding that the district attorney charge this police officer with murder. The Baca family will also be filing suits in federal court and state court for the violation of her constitutional rights, but nothing will bring back their mother and their grandmother. But I can assure you that we will do our best to hold the Las Cruces Police Department responsible for this senseless act. We will do everything in our power to make sure that in a couple years I'm not here with a third family that's been tragically killed by the Las Cruces Police Department. A couple of details I want to go into now. I want to play the video, the actual time when Ms. Baca is murdered, and then I'm going to cut it off afterwards, and then I have a few talking points, and then I'll answer your questions. But if we could play the video, please. And with sound, right?
Police department, you guys step up front.
Please be very careful.
Set it down!
No.
Set it down now! Back up! Back up! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Okay, back up! Back up now! Drop the knife! Drop the fucking knife! Drop the knife! Do it now! Drop the fucking knife! Drop the fucking knife! Do it now! Drop the fucking knife! Drop the knife! Do it now! Put him on the ground! Put him on the ground! Put it down now! Put it down! Put the fucking knife down! I'm good. We need to put her in cuffs and I need to check on them. We need to check at 827. We got one knife right here. We got another one. I don't know where the second knife is. Her hands are clear. Pull her out. Pull her out. Pull her now. There's the other knife. Pull her out. Keep her away from that knife.
Let me, I played that for a couple of reasons, for the benefit of you all, not obviously for the heart-wrenching effect it has on this family, but I want you to understand a few things. 38 seconds. That's how long it was he was at the front door before he fired 2 shots into her. 38 seconds. Don't see a lot about de-escalating there. But what you do see is, after she's shot and she's lying on the ground, her head's up, and then it drops. When this officer told the other officer to pull her out, just keep her away from the knives, because she was still alive, rendered no aid, none whatsoever. I just want to flip this board real quick for you all, and I'll sit back down, but I want to talk about the Las Cruces Police Department's orders. This is their orders that every single police officer, and I'm going to hand these out to the media. If you could, thank you. If you could pass those out. There's a copy of what I'm showing you right here. These are the Las Cruces Police Department general orders. Assisting the mentally ill, most critical. Assisting the mentally ill persons, right here. When an officer believes that a subject may be mentally ill and have a potential threat to him or herself. What's number 3? Attempt to calm the situation. Is that what that was? Dropping F-bombs, screaming at a lady that clearly is lost. She doesn't even look like she knows what's going on. Certainly she doesn't understand it because she doesn't understand English. She's just standing there. Yes, she has knives in her hand, but she's posing no threat to that police officer when he is elevating it, not de-escalating it. What's this say? Approach the person in a quiet and non-threatening manner. That's the orders that the Las Cruces Police Department are supposed to follow. Here, move slowly, being careful to avoid exciting the person. Provide reassurance that the police are there to help and that appropriate care will be provided. And one more. Do not threaten the person with arrest or physical harm. Getting back to this one. Provide reassurance that the police are there to help and that appropriate care will be provided. I ask the simple question. Is there anybody that lives in Las Cruces right now that has a loved one that is having a mental health crisis that would ever trust in calling the police after what they just witnessed? Maybe if they want their loved one executed, but certainly not if they want their loved one to be helped. What took place on this day never had to happen. And then finally, I want to say one more thing. You've recently seen the Las Cruces Police Department put out this video, this propaganda, where they edit and cut the video, where they say that this officer had 70 hours of CIT training. That's what you get for 70 hours of CIT training? A guy that goes in guns a-blazing. That's twisted. And this family is suffering immensely. They are requesting and demanding justice from the district attorney's office. We'll have our day in court, I can assure you that. But this gentleman needs to be prosecuted. The family is not going to speak directly to anything that happened on that day. They will be happy. Some of them may or may not. I ask that you respect their wishes. Wish to say something about their mother. If they choose to, they may not. I'm happy to answer any questions that any of the media has right now, if there is, myself or Daniela, either one of us will. Anything from any of you all? Yes, sir.
Can you confirm the officer's name?
We know who the officer is, but at this time we're not going to be the ones that release that.
Can you confirm that the officer's name is Jared Cosper?
I'm not answering that directly, so I appreciate your question. It's a good question, and I'm sure that will come out in due time. Yes, sir.
Para la familia, ¿cómo ha afectado esto para ustedes el ver estos videos? Veo que muchos de ustedes aún continúan bastante afectados. ¿Qué tan difícil ha sido para ustedes la muerte de su mamá?
Can I ask you to ask the question in English too, real quick, just so I can hear it? Okay. Okay.
You want me to translate it for you?
Yeah, but
Yeah, I understand. Es algo muy difícil ahorita para todos nosotros porque honestamente uno siempre espera que su madre se muera pues de vejez, ¿verdad? De alguna enfermedad, porque ya era su tiempo, no de esa manera. Es algo muy difícil para nosotros ver, escuchar, para mis hermanas que estuvieron ahí, mi sobrina. Son momentos muy difíciles que nosotros solo queremos pues que se haga justicia, claro, porque es muy difícil escuchar cada vez y ver todo lo que está pasando a nuestro alrededor y saber que pues nada va a volver a mi madre, mi mamá ya no está y pues qué más puedo decirle más que nosotros queremos justicia para mi mamá. No creo que nadie espere que su madre se muera de esa manera.
¿Cómo era ella? ¿Cómo me la puedes describir? ¿Cómo era con ustedes, con la familia?
Era una señora bien regañona, no suban los pies en el sillón y pónganse y recojan la basura. Mi mamá era avid recycler, tenía su bote lleno de su recycling, eso no va a ir. Su jardín siempre, sus flores. Mam, ¿podemos pagarle a alguien para que te ayude a hacer eso? No, yo lo hago. Siempre sus nietos, sus bisnietos en la casa cuando iban a hacer su desastre, ella ni se enojaba ya, decía, ay, déjalos, no los regañes. O sea, ella ya con tenerlos en la casa era feliz.
Ni todo el dinero del mundo, ni aunque el oficial tenga justicia, no va a regresar a su mamá, desafortunadamente. Ustedes que buscan como familia ahorita, ¿cómo se sienten? ¿Qué es lo que están buscando más allá de del oficial ustedes como familia?
Es bien difícil para nosotros, como le digo, pensar que no está ya mi madre aquí. Y nosotros lo que queremos es poder sentirnos tranquilos de que esto no le vaya a pasar a otra familia.
¿Ustedes volverían a confiar en las autoridades, ya sea aquí en Las Cruces o en otro lugar que...?
Nunca.
Es muy difícil porque uno siempre dice, hay que hablarle a la policía si te sientes en peligro o necesitas ayuda. No le hablas para algo así.
Veo que
Ok.
en el video ustedes le gritaban a los oficiales que únicamente matan a la gente. Me parece que fue uno de los familiares. ¿Cómo reaccionan después de ver a su mamá tirada, que no los permite ni siquiera ver el cuerpo cuando ustedes desde un principio les pidieron a ustedes?
I'm going to cut you off here because I don't want the family necessarily commenting on the police officers, okay?
Are we able to ask that in English as well, a couple of questions?
You can ask in English, sure, but as long as it's focused on Ms. Baca perhaps and not on the actual incident, because I'm probably going to cut you off. Okay, go ahead.
So then can I also ask, can you just tell us a little bit more about who she was as a person and just how these, couple of weeks have been after this incident happened?
It's really hard because like I said earlier, you never expect your mother to pass that way. I mean, you think your mom's gonna die of old age, maybe a chronic illness due to her age, but not that way. It's very hard, and it's heart-wrenching to see your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, all there crying for her because they don't understand what's going on. And you have to be strong for them. You have to be there emotionally for everybody because it's hard.
I'm just going to ask if it's not okay, just let me know, but are you able to comment at all just why the family, wants to file the lawsuit and try and do this? Can you just explain, why you all feel that's important?
I'll probably answer that for you. It's and this is based on obviously discussions with the family, and that is to hold the Las Cruces Police Department responsible, so that this does not take place, or at least we hope it doesn't take place for another family to have to experience the grief in a horrific tragedy like this is. We want to hold the people accountable, and our justice system is the way we do that. And that's what we are going to do. We are committed as a family and as their attorneys to hold the Las Cruces Police Department responsible. And we are also asking the District Attorney's Office to hold this officer responsible for murdering Ms. Baca. Yes.
Family asking for any financial recompense?
So as far as the financial aspect of this, obviously lawsuits, the money's involved in lawsuits, but we'll let a jury determine what the appropriate amount would be to compensate for the loss of Ms. Baca to this family. We're happy to have that day in court.
I have a question para usted. Bueno, obviamente como adulto no entendemos, sabemos qué pasó, ¿verdad? Pero como viste, su mamá, ¿verdad? Tenía nietos y bisnietos. ¿Cómo hacía el proceso para explicarle a sus nietos qué está pasando?
Ahorita en estos tiempos es difícil esconderle a un niño algo. Todo el mundo sabe que está el internet, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, en todos lados está saliendo todo esto. Entonces es muy difícil para nosotros explicarle a un niño, si estás en peligro, ve con la policía. Porque ellos ya tienen miedo a la policía. Tienen miedo que les vaya a pasar algo. Y es difícil.
Can you repeat that in English?
It's hard for us with this time and age, children, there's Facebook, Twitter, all the social media. And it's hard to hide this from a child. Like any kid who has a phone, iPad, or anything, they can get online and see all these nasty comments, all the things that are going on. And it's hard for us to explain to them You know, if you're in danger, you always go to a police officer because they're afraid of a police officer right now. They fear, you know, something might happen to them. And it's hard because you don't want to have your children grow up with that fear of a police officer when they're supposed to protect us.
Anybody else?
Well, I know you already answered this in Spanish, but just in English, can you tell us a little bit about her? Tell us, you know, some of your favorite memories, something like that.
Like I said, my mom was one of those ladies that she used to always tell you, don't put your feet on the couch. Don't put your feet on the couch, they don't go to the couch. And she always was in her garden with her flowers, with her trees. I mean, anything that lady put on the ground would grow. Barely anything. She had a green thumb. She always was happy when the kids were around. Before, she always used to get mad when we used to make messes. Now she'd be like, just leave them alone, let them be. She was just happy we were there, and anybody, the kids, it was just, she was to that point in her life where she enjoyed just having her family around her.
And then just kind of lastly explain, you know, what the loss means to your family.
It's really hard because when you think about her, like, we know she came here in her 30s, you know, an immigrant, hardworking, worked in the fields, took care of other people's children, worked really hard, you know, to be where she was at in that little house that she bought with a lot of effort. And for her to die in that place like that.
Now, this is a question for the attorneys. Do you guys mind explaining the two other suits, the federal and the state court suits that the plans to pursue?
Certainly, as far as the state case is concerned, we will be filing suit for the various torts, obviously, including aggravated battery resulting in death, but also violation of the New Mexico state constitution pursuant to the New Mexico Civil Rights Act. We also will be filing in federal court for the violation of the constitutional rights of Ms. Baca under the 4th Amendment and the 14th Amendment. Obviously, you can't just, it goes without being said, but I'll say it anyways. You can't walk up to someone's front door when they're having a mental health crisis, they have dementia, and shoot them after talking to them after yelling at them for 38 seconds. That is a violation of your constitutional rights. Yes, sir.
Are you concerned that the release of the propaganda videos affected the investigation into the police investigation into the issue?
I'm not that concerned about the fact that the video is going to have a long-term effect on anything, but it's a clear example of the Las Cruces Police Department trying to cover this up. This is trying to put a spin on it in the day of spin when it comes to social media, television, and news. They are trying to portray this as something that was understandable or excusable. And it's not excusable. This is unacceptable at every level. And the fact that they're piecemealing this out, and then they actually went to the extent, think about this, of instead of just releasing the lapel cameras to the general public through the media, instead of doing that, they decide they're going to make a production out of it. They're going to have a voiceover on it. They're going to have a little things that they type out and put on a graph. Just release the videos and let the people make their own decision on how their police officers are looking, instead of trying to spin it. And the cover-up's always worse than the crime, but not in this instance, obviously. Not in this instance, because you can't get any worse than this crime. It's murder. But yet, the police department trying to get out there with this BS propaganda, quite frankly, is really discouraging. And I think everybody in Las Cruces ought to be standing up going, wait a minute. What's wrong with the mindset of the Las Cruces Police Department right now? There is a real concern, at least on my part, that they think this might be okay. Why else would you produce and send that out like that? It doesn't make any sense to me. They ought, this man obviously should be tried for murder, and he should certainly never be out on a street with a badge again.
Do you have any information about the process of that video being released?
I didn't hear you. I'm
Do you
sorry.
have any information about the process of that video being released? And how
I don't know, but I look forward to deposing the person that produced it. I look forward to taking their deposition and find out why they decide to cut and splice here and not other places, and what were the influences coming and where were they coming from. Anybody else? Sir, in the back.
I'm not a reporter, but has the police union made a statement regarding this?
Not that I know of. I don't know of any, no. I can't imagine a lot of police officers, after they watch this video, are real proud of the conduct of their fellow officer. I would be shocked to learn that any of them think that this is acceptable, that you just walk up to the front door of a house and shoot a 75-year-old grandmother. It just blows my mind. Anybody else? Well, thank you all for taking the time and the interest in this. And I would ask one last thing of the media: respect the privacy of the family. If you have something you want to ask the family, go through the lawyers, and if we can give you a response, we will. But rather than trying to reach out individually to any of the family members, just please go through us. That's all I'm asking. I understand it, but just go through us, okay? And I'm happy to give out my phone number for anybody that needs it to do that, okay? All right? Thank you.